All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Cedar Point Planning Board meeting for July 7, 2026. We'll begin with a roll call. Michael Castellano. Here. Bill Davis. Here. Brad Smith. Here. David Autry. Here. Tony Mitchell is not here, and welcome Ed Owens, new member. We have meeting minutes from March 3rd of 2026. Everybody have a chance to review those. Were there any questions or concerns or suggested edits? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second motion.
All in favor? Okay, minutes passed. Moving on to new business. We'll start with a rezone request RZ 2026 TAC 01 to rezone a parcel at 119 Cedar Point Boulevard from B1 business to residential.
Make sure I'm sharing the screen here for the recording. In your packet is the request. The entirety of the application submitted by Mr. Thomas Barlow. His contact information is there. Property address is 119 Cedar Point Boulevard. The tax parcel there is shown. I'll pull it up on the GIS so everybody can make sure you're familiar with the property. So as you're heading into Swansboro on the right-hand side, it's this lot. There used to be a house that was there, had been kind of dilapidated for a number of years and falling in. And Tom came in and bought it and got it tore down and cleaning up the lot. And so this is the property that's the rezoning is being requested for. It is currently zone B1. If you look at the map that was in the agenda packet, it's this property here, 119, that's striped. You can see the underlying zoning for that whole area on that side is B1. Even though that has always been used as a house, it was never used commercially. And the two to the east of it have also always been used as houses. It was one lot with two houses on it. They recently split into two lots, but so all of those have been used residentially. The fact that these two, 121 and 123, continue to be used makes them pre-existing non-conforming uses. The fact that the house at 119 has sat vacant for so long, it lost its pre-existing non-conforming status, its grandfather status. So basically, a house could not be rebuilt there under the B1 zoning district because it had been so long since it's been used over the house. So the request that you see before you tonight is actually to change the zoning from this particular parcel from B1 to residential as identified in the application. Mr. Barlow did not specify a particular zoning district classification. We have several, our R10, R15, R15M, and R20. Just simply a request to make it residential. Given the size of the lot, it is non-conforming to any of those dimensional standards, but it is a lot of record, which means that even though it does not meet the dimensional standards of an R10, R15, R15M, or R20, it can still be built upon because there was a house there previously. So whatever classification, residential zoning classification you might go with really doesn't matter in this regard because it's not going to conform to any of them. My recommendation to you, and I mentioned this to Mr. Barlow, would be to go with an R20 because that is the closest residential zoning district. That's what's across the road from it. So it would be close proximity to other R21s. He had indicated as long as he can build the house, he was comfortable with whatever residential zoning district the board approves. In his description there, you'll see that he states that it is currently zone B1. Single family dwellings are not permitted in that zone. It was grandfathered, but it has lost that status. And he said he believes there's general support for this rezoning. And I would agree with his statement there. I've had conversations with our board of commissioners. We've talked about it before. The fact that this area is in a coastal A flood zone means that anything built in this area will have to be built on piers or pilings. And it's almost impossible to make use of these properties in a commercial manner on piers and pilings. People just don't spend that kind of money. Nobody wants to go to a commercial establishment up on pilings. unless it's limited uses, restaurants, bars, that sort of thing, where they're taking advantage of the waterfront. Here, that lot simply isn't large enough to make that sort of use of it anyhow. So residential is the best use of this property. In your opinion, how will the rezoning request be a benefit to you if approved? Basically, it would allow him to move forward with constructing a single family residence on the lot, subject to the town's conditions, ordinance conditions. How will the town of Cedar Point and or community benefit from the rezoning of the property? It will help maintain the fabric of the Cedar Point community, avoiding gaps in the residential and commercial frontage, ensuring continued social and economic contributions to the town of Cedar Point. New structure will be designed to meet current building and floodplain management codes, which will improve safety and resiliency against future coastal hazards and eliminate future erosion at that site. Rebuilding is necessary to restore the subject property's use, replace essential community housing, and contribute to the vitality and sustainability of the Cedar Point community. So the two options are it either sits vacant or a house gets built on it. Preference would be to see a house there from a tax standpoint and just, not having a vacant lot unusable there. So you see the list of adjoining property owners who are affected. The applicant is here for any questions that you might have this evening, as well as one of the neighbors here as well. I'll go ahead and leave it at that for now. We will need to go through the comprehensive land use plan to see what it says about rezoning of properties, and then then we can discuss it from there. But
Great, thank you. Before we ask for public comments or the property owner, does anybody have any initial questions, concerns, or burning thoughts? Afterwards, okay. So we'll open it to the property owner initially. If you want to make any comments, you don't have to. We don't have any initial questions.
Good evening, board. Thank you, David. No comments. I just hope you support our request. It's been a long journey from when we acquired the property. Went through the long CAMA major permit process, was highly scrutinized and got full approval for what we're doing, which was demolition of the house that was there. We loved the house originally, but we just could not preserve it. It had a nice coastal look to it. And but the FEMA rules do not allow that because the cost would have been greater than 50% of its assessed value, and the assessed value is insignificant. So we had to proceed, have it demolished. CAMA, which involves regulatory agencies, 24 of them involved at the state and federal level. They scrutinized it and authorized us to extend the bulkhead out, infill, and also upland development of a single family, of a residence there, as long as we stuck within the footprint of the existing structure, which I believe is also a condition of the town of Cedar Point when we first acquired the property. Some language was there that suggested that it would be approved as long as we met these certain conditions, which included sticking within the existing footprint. And now we're here. We're willing to, as David said, it's not suitable for a commercial structure. It's small. Not only the being on pilings, but there are parking requirements and all that would essentially make it not suitable for any real commercial activity that would perhaps contribute to the economy and tax base for Cedar Point. So we think that this is probably the best use. You never want to give up commercial property, but we're willing to do that in this case. And so that's where we stand today before you, the board, and hope you can approve this application to rezone. And I'm open to any questions at all.
Questions for the applicant?
No, I appreciate you talking about the pilings because that is a significant. How high do the pilings have to be in that area? Just out of curiosity.
I think that's
It's 14 feet. It's it's AE 12, and then you have a 2-foot freeboard, so 14 foot above what I believe to be normal high water.
Mhm.
So the lot is a little bit above normal high water, And so I believe they would be 10 to 12 feet. Because at the same time have to meet other conditions of building there, including building height and the like.
And I appreciate, refreshing the group because we have new people in the audience and new members on the board. And then you were right. I mean, you had to do more than 50% renovation in a flood prone area. You got demolished. So how long have you been on this journey out of curiosity?
Over 2 years, I think it was in what are we in right now? It's just like retirement. You forget when it happened. We're in 2026, it was in the September-ish of 2024, I believe. And that's when the requirement for the major CAMA permit process was, the requirement for us to take steps. We met with CAMA up in Morehead City and they say you cannot do what you want to do absent a major permit process. So it's a very long process, submission of many documents, and then a hearing with multiple agencies. And we have people from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at the federal level and down to, CAMA and the Water Commission. So many of them out there, and they get confused. You get confused of what they do and all, but all of the relevant ones were on a teleconference. I believe David too was on that teleconference, and then which resulted in the granting of our application for each element here that we requested. And we've so far fulfilled half of it. We undertook it in 2 phases. The bulkhead and all are in, and now we'd like to take the next step and build the house.
So you answered my last question about the
Okay.
bulkhead construction. So that's you and that's your lot down there.
Pardon me?
The bulkhead construction that's going on.
There are 2 sets.
Okay.
Ours is limited to the 75-foot width of our lot.
Mhm.
Our adjacent property owners here also at the same time put their bulkhead in.
Okay.
And actually, that's a very, as you know, it's an AE 12, and just for preserving the soil, guarding against erosion and the like. This for both of our efforts, were positive, I think, for the community.
So for your neighbors, what lot are they?
We are 19. Well, we're at 119. They're 117.
Okay.
I think we are lot 75, and are we 75?
I'm not sure about the lot number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the address is 117.
Okay. That's all I have.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll open to public comments on this specific application. If anybody wants to speak, no obligation.
I'll just say I own the property next door, and I don't have any problem with where it's doing. Happy for it.
Jane, do you have his name and everything? Yeah, okay. Okay. And we'll turn it over to the board for any other questions, concerns.
My only question was if the neighbors are okay. What do we know about on the other side?
Haven't heard anything.
David, if we have a residential abutting a business, it does change the potential requirements for buffer zone between them. There's no obligation for a residential lot to implement that buffer. It would be the business lot next door that would have to implement that buffer if they changed the use of the lot and built a business.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as everything stays the same, no buffer
Is
would be required.
at this point. I guess it puts lot or address 121 to a slight disadvantage if for some reason they wanted to build a business there. And you have to put a buffer in that they wouldn't otherwise have to put if it was still business. But given the size of that lot, it's unlikely that a
It's
business would
unlikely
ever
that
go
it would
in
never
there.
be commercial.
No other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to rezone request.
Did you have?
Before you do that, let me go through
That's right.
the,
You gotta do the, sorry, got ahead of it.
that's all right. So going through the comprehensive land use plan. there really isn't a whole lot that speaks to this type of proposal other than our future land use map. And if you look at this particular map, everything at that end, for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, is this light blue color. So to the left-hand side, if you can see the little hand there, is where this lot's located. In fact, it's that one right there. And that would indicate a waterfront mixed use, future land use. And the definition for that is a waterfront properties that should accommodate a mixture of uses which benefit from waterfront views and or water access. The explanation there is the areas designed as waterfront mixed use are within the coastal A floodplain and currently accommodate a mixture of uses. In the future, as development in these areas may be limited due to the development standards within the coastal A floodplain, an effort should be made to ensure that permitted uses, either residential or commercial, are water focused. This can include residential homes, commercial uses which are water dependent, such as marinas, and commercial uses which are benefited by waterfront views, such as restaurants. It is the town's intent to consider establishing a mixed use zoning district that would set these, set forth these requirements. So basically, in that area, because of the floodplain regulations, it's expected that there would be a number of residential uses and either water dependent or water benefited commercial uses. So this certainly fits within that future design of allowing residential in that area. So when you look through the individual standards or goals that we have, public access, land use compatibility, infrastructure carrying capacity, natural hazard areas, water quality, there's really nothing there that speaks to this other than this ensure land use compatibility. Simply says that you will utilize the future land use map, which we just looked at, when considering any major development proposal, rezoning, or similar application for a change in land use or development in the city area. Just basically says use the map that we just looked at. So based on that, I have a proposed consistency statement for you. Let me blow it up a little bit bigger. It would read, the Town of Cedar Point Planning Board hereby finds that the following request, rezoning RZ 2026-01, a request to rezone the property located at 119 Cedar Point Boulevard and joining parcel identification number, I won't read it, from B1 to R20 is consistent with the Town of Cedar Point Comprehensive Plan adopted November 16, 2023, because the property is shown as being in a waterfront mixed use area of the future land use map and residential uses are anticipated in the waterfront mixed use area. So that, and certainly anytime you take a vote on these, you're welcome to change that consistency statement. It's just to give you a basis to use. If you want to reword it, however. But I'm open to any questions on the comp plan if you have any.
No, I mean, I think most of the planning board and I know current people in attendance, the public, we're not here when we did the Town of Cedar Point comprehensive plan. So that was a year-long endeavor with a contractor, input from residents, having surveys go out during Cedar Fest, involving the commissioners, the planning board. So it's a good guiding document for us, and it does make sense and helps guide us, especially when we're dealing with contentious issues. So it's just not the 6 of us here. I mean, there's a lot of thought went into this comprehensive plan.
Okay. I think now we can entertain a motion.
I make a motion that to approve rezone request RZ 2026-01, a request to rezone parcel located at 119 Cedar Point Boulevard from B1 business to residential R20 and is consistent with the Town of Cedar Point comprehensive plan adopted November 16, 2023, because the property is shown as being in a waterfront mixed use area of the future land use map and residential uses are anticipated in the waterfront mixed use area.
Motion. Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Motion passes.
So, now we're good. Next step in the process will be, it'll go before the Board of Commissioners on the 23rd, 28th. 6:30, same place.
Okay, thank you, Board.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next is a text amendment 2026 text 04 to request and to amend our UDO concerning specifically removal of the number of seats required to have on premises to permit alcohol for restaurants.
All right. The application is in your agenda packet. Applicant is John Causley. He is here in attendance with us. The request is specifically to remove the specified number of seats for restaurants in order to have on-premise alcohol sales. And I think rather than reading through all of this, it would be helpful for you to kind of see what the language currently says, both under the town's ordinances as well as the ABC Commission. So give me just a second. Let me change the screen here so that. Right. A little bigger. So according to the ABC Commission, a restaurant is defined as an establishment substantially engaged in the business of preparing and serving meals. To qualify as a restaurant, an establishment's gross receipts from food and non-alcoholic beverages shall not be less than 30% of the total gross receipts from food, non-alcoholic beverages, and alcoholic beverages sold for on-premise consumption. A restaurant shall also have a kitchen and an inside dining area with seating for at least 10 people. It is not necessary for an establishment to maintain kitchen operations at all times. It is open to the public to qualify as a restaurant. So that is the ABC Commission rules as of today. These were changed, I don't know, several years ago, 2017. So now let's look at what Cedar Point's UDO has to say. So under our UDO, a restaurant is defined as an establishment having a kitchen and an inside dining area and being substantially engaged in the business of preparing and serving meals to the general public, primarily for on-premises consumption. Pretty similar there. To qualify as a restaurant, an establishment's gross receipts from food and non-alcoholic beverages shall not be less than 60% of the total gross receipts from food, non-alcoholic, and alcoholic beverages. And then under our use standards dealing with restaurants, it says a restaurant may qualify for an on-premises fortified wine or mixed beverages permit or an on-premise malt beverage permit under North Carolina General Statute Section 18B-900 if there is an inside dining area set aside for the service of meals that contain seating for at least 36 persons. Food shall be available at all times that alcoholic beverages are being served. This is a matter of state law and is subject to change only by the North Carolina General Assembly and/or ABC Commission. I think that last sentence was placed in there to make it clear that the reason the town adopted these provisions is those were the provisions that were in place at the time our language was adopted. Back then, you had to have seating for 36 people. You had to have gross receipts for food and non-alcoholic beverages of not less than 60% of the total of all gross receipts. And you had to serve food at all times that alcoholic beverages were being served. The ABC Commission has since changed that. And these are the primary differences between what was in place at the time versus what's in place today from the town standpoint. So the ABC Commission now requires 10 seats while our ordinance still requires 36. The ABC Commission only requires 30% of sales where ours requires 60%. And with ABC Commission, food availability with alcohol is not required where ours it is required. Now the applicant has submitted a request only addressing the seating requirement.
Mm-hmm.
You as a board can limit your discussion tonight to that. And if so, it will change the way the language is written, the actual text amendment. Or you can go ahead and take this opportunity to try to clean up some of these other issues if you want to. But that is what is before you. the request for seats has to be addressed by this board tonight. The others do not have to be, but you certainly can. Because it is in the same vein, it's in the same area of the ordinances that's being amended. So now I'll go back up to the application that was submitted. The applicant said he would like to see the number of seats removed so that the town can follow the law of the ABC Commission. The reason he asked it to be removed is the law states now that the minimum number of seats is 10. So if the town removes the minimum number, and if the state changes it again, then we don't have to worry about the number required. So the proposal will not be to reduce it from 36 to 10, but simply to change the ordinance to say whatever the ABC Commission requires. That way, if 2 years from now, the ABC Commission goes up to 25 seats, then that's what would be required going forward. So we're not having to update our ordinances every time the ABC Commission updates theirs. In your opinion, how will the request be of benefit to you if approved? He states that he'll be able to have on-premise permit to be able to offer his customers alcohol. How will the town of Cedar Point and or the community benefit from the amendment? It will allow customers to have another option to have an alcoholic beverage while they're with their meal and keep the business in our town and not go elsewhere outside of our town to have an alcoholic beverage with their meal. So there's the reasons and the justifications for it. I think probably one of the first things to do after, of course, giving the applicant opportunity to add anything he wants would be for you all to decide if you want to expand the request or just limit it to what exactly was proposed. Because that will kind of dictate what language is looked at.
We can expand it. Just all about it.
And I'm open to any question that you might have as well.
Initial questions for David. Okay, so we'll open to the applicant if you want to share any comments and maybe share your opinion about the application as is versus expanding it.
If you expand it, then we can just go straight by the ABC laws. So if they change the route, we don't have to do another application and pay an application fee every single time. We just get it changed.
Okay. So you're okay with it?
Absolutely.
The board is okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Any questions for me?
We'll briefly open for any public comment on this. If anybody wants to talk. No, okay. All right, any questions, concerns, or comments from the board? What are your thoughts on the application specifically as is, to remove the requirement versus expanding to changing policy to be compliant with ABC Commission in general?
I would say just mirror the ABC, because otherwise you're gonna have to come back to it later.
So which part? Seating or all the language? So he applied for seats. So what part are you talking? So right now we say like food is 60%. So I mean, what? So mirror all of it?
I would mirror all of it, then if they change, I mean, you could put wording in it to where that we follow the ABC Commission's recommendations or policies, then if they change later, then ours would automatically change instead of coming back and doing.
That's the way I was reading the verbiage in the beginning, when it said subject to change. I was like, well, why do they got 36 seats in here? If it's subject to change, I would think the town would change.
So David, how many restaurants do we have in town?
How many restaurants do we have?
David?
The other day.
Yeah, the other day.
Let's see, we got Bojangles, Pizza Hut, Bogue House, Compass Grill, Dunkin' Donuts. I said Pizza Hut, didn't I?
Yeah, I was
Domino's.
like,
Yeah.
it's close.
Pizza place, it's a pizza place.
I think it would always sit down establishment. Bogue House, yeah, Bogue House. Riptide is under bar still, right?
Yeah, Riptide's in the bar.
Right.
Does
And Mugshots would have been a bar if and whenever it opens.
Boat House meet the requirement now? Do they serve alcohol? No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think they serve beer, don't hold me to that, but I think they serve beer by the bottle.
They probably have 36 seats in the restaurant.
Probably so.
I think so. So change wouldn't impact them, most likely.
They would actually have a problem if they were,
You
if that
could
was.
follow the ABC thing. I would be leery of not requiring food availability, because then you just turn it into a bar.
So I just reading three issues outlined here, the number of seats, the percent of sales, and whether or not food should be available at all times.
And what you just said there too, I'm okay with that too.
The
So
reason
why
why,
if you serve food,
the reason why the ABC Commission wrote the availability of food in before the ABC Board required the restaurants to serve a full menu from open and close if they were serving alcohol, and that was causing a lot of problems with a lot of restaurants, so they took out the availability of, it's really, I think some of the verbiage says full menu served all day, so a lot of these restaurants will go to a night menu, which is the bar menu, and they'll serve like appetizers only. Because under the prior language of the ABC Board, a restaurant has served their full menu from open to close if they serve alcohol, so it's caused a lot of problems with restaurants, especially like in Raleigh and Charlotte, that wanted to stay open late night, but didn't want to have 50 things, you know, they didn't want to have 15 people in the kitchen to prepare food to go to a bar menu. That wasn't allowed before. Your full menu had to be served, and they had to serve food until they closed, and the kitchen had to stay open. And so this allowed restaurants to not have to keep the kitchen open, because these are still restaurants, right? So these places are still serving food at some point. They're not going to be bars. This is classified for restaurants. It's a classification that falls just for restaurants. This has nothing to do with bars. So these are still restaurants, so they're still gonna have to serve food, but they just made it where they didn't have to have food the entire time. They decided to go to a smaller menu or close the kitchen an hour before they closed, before that was illegal.
just on that,
And, right, and now that's the reason why they wrote that into it, try to help out without having to have a huge menu all day. And because you can't turn this into a bar, because you still have to be a restaurant. And a bar will be a bar, you know, so that's the difference there.
So even if they're not serving food at any given point in the day and they are serving alcohol, that doesn't change the fact that they would still have to have that 30% of sales.
Correct. Still have
For the
30%
day.
Sales of food to alcohol. So that sales will be there no matter what, but they just don't have to serve that food until the minute they close anymore. So the 30% food sales to alcohol.
That's primarily your defining factor now between a restaurant and bar.
Correct.
Bar would not have that requirement.
Right, to where a restaurant would just, if the 30% wasn't there, a restaurant could just serve a hot dog on a menu. And then technically a restaurant will still try to get under and be a bar. With this, they still have to have 30% of food, which is still quite a bit of food, especially if they're gonna serve, you know, a lot of alcohol. We're only trying to do beer and wine, we're not trying to get a mixed beverage permit. We primarily want beer and wine to go, just like the CP had to have folks that come in and grab a case. But we also want to be able to offer to people at the restaurant, or if somebody before, if it's just off premise, if somebody bought off premise there and opened a beer out in front or somewhere on the property, we can get a ticket by ALE. So this way, if somebody buys the beer or enjoys one inside, we're, you know, not subject to being in trouble with ALE, so we've got on premise, off premise. And that's kind of where all this falls into place.
So for record, I know we got John McCalsey and you are,
Almost go.
and so John, are you the owner of the restaurant or the manager?
Partners,
You're both partners in a restaurant?
yes, sir.
Okay.
So my question goes like what you just said, Paul, is you're just applying for fortified wine or mixed beverage.
Not fortified, just no mixed beverage. Just beer and wine, not fortified wine, not mixed beverage.
And given the fact that section 6.2.pp.1.e specifies specifically about fortified wine or mixed beverage. I know what your intentions are, but what if we change the language to essentially match what the ABC Commission or the state law says? If someone else wants to do something different than what you want to do, is there any negative consequences? Or unintentional consequences if we just match language with the ABC Commission?
It would still be 30% or so, even if they slung liquor versus beer and wine. So it would be the same.
So that's why Ed, I asked, what do we want to change? Like, he just wants to change seats. We can update the language, say that Town of Cedar Point, our UDO complies with ABC Commission seating, whatever that may be. and we can leave everything else the same. So I mean, that's an option. So that's why I asked, what did David Autry mean by his questions? So the applicant originally put in for 10 seats.
But to eliminate that, another restaurant opens up in Cedar Point, they could come to you and say, well, 60%. And that's why I would agree with David.
It's out in language.
Exactly, that's why I agree with David, just expand it to just follow what the ABC Commission says and just follow their guidelines.
So then we can, so back to our discussion, what we want to change, so seating 30%, do we limit, like what you're saying in there, just no fortified wine, no mixed drinks, so we can adjust what we want.
One thing that you should probably be aware of, so when mugshots came before you, and wanted to put a bar in, the reason they chose to go with a bar rather than a restaurant, even though they would probably qualify for a restaurant based on what they've indicated their anticipated food sales would be,
Seats.
they didn't have the right number of seats. So the language as it's written actually encourages people to pursue a bar over a restaurant, even though they want to open a restaurant, because the bar wouldn't require the number of seats, and they can sell food in a bar. So, I think you should keep that in mind as well. You're actually, under the current language, encouraging people to apply for bar permits as opposed to restaurant permits, even though they want to be primarily a restaurant.
And I just want to be able to offer a mimosa or a glass of wine with their meal.
Yeah, because under the current language, that restaurant would have to have 60% food sales versus alcohol, which would be quite a bit. You could consider a restaurant instead of drop down to the 30. And then you call a restaurant instead of bar.
Correct.
Restaurant instead of bar food.
So it sounds like everyone's got a pretty good handle of whether or not we're concerned about the number of seats. And for the percent of sales, it seems reasonable to follow the ABC Commission potentially. But what are your thoughts on whether or not food should be permitted at all times? The ABC saying it's not necessary, our studio saying it is necessary. Any strong opinions from the board?
So I guess the question I have is sort of a variation of what Ed asked, which is obviously whatever the state says, we have to operate within that. And is there any advantage to us, not just with all the other changes and all the arguments we've heard about, like the current language incentivizes bar over restaurant. Is there any town equities in us just not adopting the state language and rephrasing it to say that our town ordinance should mirror the state language, and that future proofs us? But if we have other town equities that I'm not thinking of, then that would be the concern. So I'm I guess drifting towards just a motion to adopt the state language, or to adopt language that says that we will mirror the state language unless I'm missing something from the history of section 6.2 PP 1E that we want to be different or more restrictive than the state.
No, based on what we have in the ordinances right now, if you go back and look at the old ABC Commission requirements, they mirrored one another back then. So the intent at that point was to mirror the ABC Commission requirements. They've changed, we haven't.
So could we do a proposal to just modify the language to mirror, to put language in that says that we just mirror the state language of a restaurant, and then that way if they change it, our ordinances that we're mirroring the state language, state changes it, and it sort of automatically changes ours.
We certainly do. You want to make a motion? Fire away.
Well,
Do we have to, these guys go through?
Do we have to?
well, we'll have to go through, our comprehensive land use plan.
Okay.
I do have some language. I tried to draft it to give you the flexibility. A restaurant in that what you see in brackets was optional. So you could just write it, a restaurant may qualify for an on-premises fortified wine or mixed beverages permit or an on-premise malt beverage permit in accordance with the rules set forth by the ABC Commission and North Carolina General Statute, section 118B-900. You can leave it just at that right there.
Okay.
What you would also need to do, though, is in our definition, strike to qualify as a restaurant establishment's gross receipts from food shall not be less than 60%.
Mhm.
And that will bring us in line with all three of those ABC Commission requirements by doing those two things.
And we have the option of adding what you have in parentheses there is food shall be available at all times if we wanted to have that permission.
Yep. So if you wanted to address that issue and keep it separate from the ABC Commission, you could add that line back into it.
Mhm.
And if you wanted to keep the 60% as opposed to the 30%, then you would say a restaurant as defined by this UDO, because it's in our definition of a restaurant that has that 60% standard.
And then not strike it.
So I drafted it to give you all three options. Depending on which way you want to go. So if you want to mirror the commission, then your motion would be to adopt the proposed language, except what's in parentheses,
Mhm.
and striking the last sentence of the definition of restaurant. But let me go through the
Yes.
comp plan real quick. Let's pull this back over here. And let me go back to sharing the screen. So, quite honestly, this actually has less in the comp plan
Mhm.
addressing this issue than the rezoning. But the only thing I could come across was the whole idea of maintaining a small town feel. And specifically what it says is our goal is to maintain and enhance the small town character of Cedar Point. The preservation of Cedar Point small town character is of great concern to its residents, business owners, and elected officials. Particular concerns within this subject include enhancing community appearance, promoting small business growth, improving walkability, embracing a recreational identity, and coordinating with our neighbors. The only argument I think you can make one way or the other on this issue is that by allowing the sale of alcohol at small scale restaurants, you are promoting small business growth and maintaining a small town feel. So that is the draft language that I have here for you. Assuming you want to go forward with an amendment, the proposed consistency statement might read, the Town of Cedar Point Planning Board hereby finds that the following request, text amendment TA 2026-04, a request to amend the language in the UDO concerning the removal of the number of seats required to have an on-premise permit for alcohol for restaurants is consistent with the Town of Cedar Point Comprehensive Plan adopted November 16, 2023. Because the allowance of alcohol at smaller scale restaurants would help maintain and enhance the small town character of Cedar Point and promote small business growth. You're certainly welcome to change it however you see fit, but that's about the only argument I could find to make.
And Paul did an amazing job with comments. It looks so much better than what he was. So this would only enhance it for us.
So I'm open to any questions that you have about the comp plan or consistency statement.
Well, my only question is, why would we have a 60% rule versus a 30%?
So it's historically what it was. I mean, so David was saying how he went back into the research and the language that we have matched what historically was with the ABC Commission.
Well,
Because it used to be.
That's what it was years ago.
right,
so-
but now the ABC Commission says 30%.
Correct.
So
And we,
why would we differ from that at this point?
And just to play devil's advocate, and this is just out of my curiosity, if that's what the state minimum is, and that's what the law is, if you set it at 60, how is that even enforced by ALE if their hands are tied to be able to, who would enforce the 60% rule if ALE can't, their hands are tied? There used to be some outdated stuff in MRI, and ALE came and said, well, we can't do anything because these are our laws and rules and MRI. It's not. I'm just wondering how would you enforce that if you did put the language in there that it was 60%? How is that enforced by who? Because ALE can't enforce it because it's not law for them. Just out of curiosity.
The way that I would foresee it most likely working is when ALE does their review to determine compliance with that the town would obtain a copy of those records and it would reveal what that actual number is. And if it's below 60%, then we would have to take action against
Pull
it.
the permit.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Pull, but not a special use permit, pull what, the ABC permit?
Um,
I mean, I'm
so
just curious.
yeah, so at that point, it would be the town reaching out to the ABC commission saying that you no longer qualify for the permit and let them pull that permit based on a zoning violation. Because you have to do the zoning verification
Right,
as part of it.
I was just curious.
It wouldn't be an easy process.
Right.
The only reason I raised
My
that
question
Maybe
is,
just be back here for another year.
why would the town go any way different than what the state says?
Just to cause further problems.
I would just follow what the state says.
So-
This is what the state recommends, and this is state law. We as a town should follow state.
Either
law.
way, it's not gonna make a difference for us.
No.
We're we sell way more than even 60%.
I can tell you 4th of July weekend.
To a $4 beer that we're gonna sell is not, gonna affect, none of that stuff's gonna affect us. It doesn't really just, we're concerned really about what we're concerned about. But we just thought after going through all the verbiage and everything was outdated, and the prior verbiage mirrored what was state minimums, like it just makes sense to go back to mirroring what they had before. But that's up to you guys. It really is not gonna affect us.
Well, the only reason I raised the question was if we're going to, I think that was one of the options was to keep the 60% in there. So that was just a question for everyone is there a reason why we would, if the overall strategy is to just simply match what the agency says, that way we don't have to change every time. We can keep pace with whatever the agency does. But if we're starting off with a difference already, saying, okay, when it comes to seats, it's whatever the ABC says, but when it comes to sales, we're gonna differ. So I was asking you.
The only reason you would want to do that is if you wanted to reduce the volume of alcohol sales at restaurants. Generally, I mean, that would be the only reason why you would keep it as opposed to changing the mirror.
I suspected that's why.
Yeah, I can't think of any other reason.
Anyone want to make a motion? No.
So I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed language without the parenthetical additions. So the proposed language would be a restaurant may qualify for an on-premises portable wine or mixed beverages permit or an on-premises malt beverage permit in accordance with the rules set forth by the ABC Commission and North Carolina General Statute 18B 900.
And we'll strike the language.
One question, do you want to, before there's a second,
Sure.
did you want to have food available at all time as part of that motion?
So I will say that was originally, I thought, a good position to keep, but I think listening to what David said about the prior business where there's incentivizing between bar and restaurant, I think sort of market factors are going to sort that out. And I think that the necessity to drive the food receipts should keep it available. I mean, I'm ambivalent. Feel free to reject I mean,
Mhm.
I'm fairly neutral on that. It sounds like the concerns for that historically will be sorted out in. If there's a business case for food, I think they're gonna sell as much as they can, so.
As long as my doors are open, I'm
They'll
still eating
they'll
food.
keep a bar menu available or other snacks available. So,
When you push people to do bar instead of restaurant, then they don't have to serve food at all. So at least if you give them the leeway of, reducing it down a little bit, then you're gonna have more restaurant. Then somebody just go, okay, regular bar, then they don't have to serve food at all.
So you want to, that's perfectly fine. So you want to not include any provision requiring food sales, and then you would need to then also add to your motion to strike.
To qualify as a restaurant establishment, gross receipts from food, non-alcoholic beverages shall not be less than 60% of the total gross receipts from food, non-alcoholic and alcoholic beverages.
And you want to adopt the consistency
And
statement.
adopt consistency statement as read earlier in the meeting.
It's okay with you. Okay, so a motion is on the floor to change the language of the UDO to be compliant with ABC Commission. And strike language from the UDA requiring a restaurant to have 60% sales and a consistency statement as outlined. Do we have a second on that exact motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. It is unanimous. Excellent. And as a reminder, this is simply a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. They'll make the final decision on that. Sure. Okay. We'll open to public comments on any other topics. I'm thinking probably not much. Close on that. Comments from board members.
Just, welcome board, Ed. Look forward to working with you as we go through different topics and issues. We're a growing town, and so we got a lot of hospital coming in, and I think that hospital is gonna be a magnet for other things. There'll be a lot of opportunity for good discussions amongst us.
Next meeting will be Tuesday, August 4th. If there's anything, do you anticipate anything on the agenda? Or per se?
Possibly.
Possible, okay. We'll take
I will tell you that there's some legislation that's pending, possibly adoption at the state level, which would require us to update our ordinances to stay in conformity with some state law changes. And so the other changes that I've told you that I have for you, I'm holding until hopefully doing all of those all at the same time. So that's why I haven't presented it to you. There's not a rush on them. Dealing with temporary signage and parking size requirements, that is just, it's a conflict in our ordinances, but the state law already addresses it, so we have to follow state law anyhow. So it's just to clean up a couple of things. Whenever the state adjourns, the legislature adjourns, and we know for sure what we have to change, then I'll bring that to you. That may be your August meeting, it may be September.
a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.